Hi, and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to make this cute little shrimp. I wanted to find a way to make the shrimp's tail both bendable and shell-like, so it would resemble the tail of a real shrimp. And this is what I came up with. For this project you'll need some yarn, a matching crochet hook, stuffing, a yarn needle, and a pair of scissors. You'll also need some safety eyes if you'd like to use them. If you don't have any, or if you're making this for a young child, you can always sew the eyes on instead. With that said, let's get started. We'll begin with the head and work from the top down. Start by making a magic ring with 6 single crochets. I'll be working in joined rounds, so at the end of each round, I'll slip stitch into the first stitch, then chain 1 to bring the yarn up to the height of the next round. For round 2, work 6 increases to bring the stitch count up to 12. In the next round, work 2 single crochets and then an increase. Repeat that sequence 3 more times, for a total of 4 repeats. By the end of the round, you should have 16 stitches. For the following round, work 3 single crochets and then an increase. Repeat that sequence 3 more times, making 4 repeats in total. At the end of the round, you'll have 20 stitches. Now we'll increase one last time to reach the maximum stitch count for the shrimp. Work 4 single crochets and then an increase. Repeat that sequence 3 more times for a total of 4 repeats. And at the end of the round you should have 24 stitches. The next 4 rounds are nice and simple. Just work 24 single crochets around in each round. Great! We've finished the 4 rounds of 24 single crochets, and this is what our little shrimp head looks like so far. Now it's time to start decreasing to create the tail sections. For the next round, we'll be working into the back loops only. Start by making 2 single crochets. And then a decrease. Repeat that sequence 5 more times, so you'll work it 6 times in total. 2 single crochets and then a decrease. At the end of the round, you should have 18 stitches. In the following round, work 1 single crochet and then a decrease. Repeat that sequence 5 more times for a total of 6 repeats. This will bring the stitch count down to 12. Now before we close up this first section, it's time to insert the safety eyes. Place the eyes between rounds 5 and 6, counting from the top and not including the magic ring. If you do count the magic ring as a round, they'll go between round 6 and 7 instead. Position the eyes with about 2 to 3 stitches between them. Of course, the exact placement depends on the size and style of eyes you're using. Mine are 5mm, but if you're using larger or different shaped eyes, you may want to adjust the spacing until it looks right. Before moving on, don't forget to stuff the head. We'll be closing this section later, so adding stuffing after that will either be impossible or at least much more difficult. Now let's continue with the next round. Work 6 decreases around to bring the stitch count down to just 6 stitches. Then in the following round, work an increase into every stitch around, using the front loops only. This brings us back up to 12 stitches. For the next round, work a single crochet and then an increase. Repeat that sequence 6 times in total. At the end of the round, you should have 18 stitches. In the following round, work 2 single crochets, then an increase. Repeat that sequence 5 more times, making 6 repeats altogether. By the end of the round, you'll be back to 24 stitches. For the next round, we'll be working into the back loops only again. Simply work 1 single crochet into each stitch around for a total of 24 single crochets. Next, we'll create the next tail section. Working into the back loops only, make 2 single crochets, then a decrease. Repeat that sequence 5 more times for a total of 6 repeats. At the end of the round, you should have 18 stitches. For the next round, go back to working through both loops. Make a single crochet, then a decrease, and repeat that sequence 5 more times for a total of 6 repeats. This brings the stitch count down to 12. Now work 6 decreases around to bring the stitch count down to just 6 stitches. Now that we've finished the first full tail section, you can probably see where this is going. Thanks to this construction, the body stays nice and bendable. Each section is only connected through the center, which gives the shrimp a lot more flexibility while still keeping that segmented shell-like look. Next, we'll start expanding outward again. Working into the front loops only, make an increase in each stitch around. After the 6 increases, you'll be back to 12 stitches. Quick cat break. My cat is doing everything possible to sabotage this video right now. For the following round, work a single crochet and then an increase. Repeat that sequence 6 times to bring the stitch count up to 18. Then work 2 single crochets, followed by an increase. Repeat that sequence 6 times, bringing the total back up to 24 stitches. Now that we've reached the maximum width again, we'll work into the back loops only. Simply make 24 single crochets around. Now to complete the second section, we'll start decreasing again. This is essentially the same process we used for the first section. Working into the back loops only, make 2 single crochets, then a decrease. Repeat that sequence 6 times to bring the stitch count down to 18. Next, work a single crochet, followed by a decrease, and repeat that 6 times. This brings you down to 12 stitches. Now work 6 decreases to close off the second section. Great, now you can see we are finished with the second section. It's starting to look a little funny at this point. In total, we'll have 4 of these sections, but the third one will be a bit smaller. So first, increase 6 times into the front loops only to bring the stitch count back up to 12. The next round is slightly different from the previous sections. Work 2 single crochets, then an increase. And repeat that sequence 3 more times for a total of 4 repeats. At the end of the round, you should have 16 stitches. Next, work 3 single crochets. Then an increase. Repeat that sequence 3 more times, again for a total of 4 repeats. This brings you up to 20 stitches. And this is the width we want for the third section. So now, working into the back loops only, make 20 single crochets all around. To shape the third section, we'll start decreasing again. Work 3 single crochets, then a decrease. And repeat that 4 times in total. At the end of the round, you'll have 16 stitches. Next, work 2 single crochets, then a decrease, repeating that 4 times to bring you down to 12 stitches. And now make 6 decreases to close the third section. Great, third section complete, and I have to admit it's kind of fun to play around with at this point. Honestly, the sections alone already make it look pretty cool. And now some very important instructions, straight from my cat. Now let's move on to the fourth section. First, increase 6 times using the front loops only, just like we did for the previous sections. That brings you back up to 12 stitches. Next, work 2 single crochets and then an increase. And repeat that sequence 3 more times, for a total of 4 repeats. At the end of the round, you should have 16 stitches, and that's already the width we'll keep for this fourth section. So next, work 16 single crochets into the back loops only. Then we start decreasing again. Work 2 single crochets, then a decrease. And repeat that sequence 3 more times for a total of 4 repeats. At the end, you'll be back down to 12 stitches. And now we close the last section. Work 6 decreases all around. Now that all sections are finished, you can close the opening using your yarn needle. I do this by inserting the needle through the front loops of the remaining stitches and pulling everything tight to close the gap. Then just weave in the end to secure it. Great! Our main body construction is now complete. Now we can move on to the shell details on the top of each section to make it look more like a shrimp and less like a fidget toy. Let's start at the top. Since we've been working in back loops only at the start of each section, we still have those unused front loops and we can use them to attach our yarn. Using the eyes as a guide, find the front center of the body. The first section has 24 stitches in total, so from the center, the 6 stitches to the left and the 6 stitches to the right make up the front of the shrimp, since 24 divided by 2 is 12 stitches. To start, attach your yarn on the left side so that the next 12 stitches form the front section. Then work 12 single crochets into the 3 front loops. Next, make a half double crochet increase. That is 2 half double crochets in the same stitch. Now we move into double crochet clusters of 2. If you haven't done these before, they are quite simple. Start a double crochet, but stop before the final pull through. Then start a second double crochet in the same stitch and finish both stitches together at the end. It's like working a double crochet increase, but you complete the final step of both stitches at the same time. Work 2 double crochet clusters of 2, and then a double crochet increase. Then 2 more double crochet clusters. Now we mirror that sequence in reverse. Start with 2 double crochet clusters, then a double crochet increase, and then 3 double crochet clusters. And finish with a half double crochet increase. And in the next round, work 12 slip stitches along the front. And 16 slip stitches along the back. Because of the increases from the previous round, that back section now has 16 stitches instead of 12. When you are done, cut the yarn and weave in all ends with your yarn needle. Great, our first shell detail is complete. You'll notice the back is quite dense compared to regular double crochets, which are usually more airy. That's exactly why we use clusters instead. They give a fuller, more structured look that works much better for this effect. Since the next 2 sections also have 24 stitches, you can just repeat the same steps we just did for the top section. Make sure to still mark the front of the shrimp and use the previous section as a guide. And as always, use the front loops that are free at the start of each section. So now we're done with the 2 sections below the top one, and only 2 sections are left. Since those remaining sections are a bit smaller than the top one, we'll adjust the stitch count slightly. For the second to last section, we have 20 stitches in total, meaning 10 in the front and 10 in the back. Again, attach your yarn at the stitch just before the 10 front stitches, and repeat the same structure as before. In the front, work 10 single crochets. In the back section, work a half double crochet increase, then 2 double crochet clusters, a double crochet increase, and a double crochet cluster. Then repeat that sequence in reverse. A double crochet cluster, a double crochet increase, 2 double crochet clusters, and a half double crochet increase. In the next round, work 10 slip stitches along the front, and 14 slip stitches along the back. As with the previous sections, cut the yarn and weave in the ends. Now let's move on to the last section. Here we have 16 stitches total, meaning 8 in the front and 8 in the back. Attach your yarn at the start, just before the 8 front stitches. Then work 8 single crochets into the front section. Then in the back section, work a half double crochet, followed by 3 double crochet clusters. Now repeat that sequence in reverse. 3 double crochet clusters followed by a half double crochet. Next, work 16 slip stitches all around. Great, we are now done with all the shell details. It already looks quite a bit like a shrimp, but you can probably see that the sections are still a bit loose at this stage. We'll fix that later during assembly. First, let's move on to the bottom fins. Now let's make the fins. We'll make 2 in total. For each fin, start with a chain of 6, plus 1. Into the second chain from the hook, work a single crochet. Then a half double crochet. 2 double crochets. Another half double crochet. And a single crochet into the last chain. Now turn your chain and work along the other side. Repeat the same sequence. A single crochet, a half double crochet, 2 double crochets, a half double crochet and a single crochet. When you are done, fold the piece. Then close the curved edge with 6 single crochets. At the end, chain 1 to secure the piece. Then cut the yarn, leaving a slightly longer tail for sewing. Once you have 2 fins, we can start assembling everything. First, sew the 2 fins together at the top. This will make it easier to tuck them into the bottom of the main body later. Next, sew the fins onto the bottom so that the shell detail of the last section sits over the top edge and hides where they attach, so they look neatly tucked in. Now we'll fix the positioning of the tail sections. To do that, sew each section together at the front so that only the back curves freely, while the front of all sections stays connected. Make sure you sew through the base structure and not through the shell details. The shell sections should stay on top and remain visible. When you are done, your shrimp should look like this, with all shell sections neatly stacked on top of each other. Now there are only 2 final steps left, the mouth and the antennae. Let's start with the mouth. Simply embroider a short line about 2 to 3 stitches long, centered between the eyes and placed 1 round below them. Now the antennae. Make 2 in total. For each antennae, simply chain 8. Then use a yarn needle to weave the end back through the chain to hide it neatly. After that, sew them onto the head of the shrimp, roughly 2 rounds above the eyes. And that's it, your shrimp is finished! I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. As always, feel free to leave any questions or feedback in the comments below. I'd also love to see your finished shrimp if you make one. Bye for now, and I hope to see you in my next video.